Thank you. Oh, God bless you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. You know, when I was here at the last Georgia Republican Convention, they gave me an opportunity to speak, which I am always thrilled to do, except there's one big difference between the last time I spoke to this distinguished group and this time. The last time, I wasn't thinking about running for president of the United States. It hadn't crossed my mind. But as you know, a lot has happened in this country. And as you know, this country is on the wrong track, but we have an opportunity to put it back on the right track. The founding fathers got it right. They got it right when they said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator. You notice I didn't leave that out. Never will. Endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The founding fathers got it right. And if we keep reading, we'll find out that they got it right some more when they said, when any form of government becomes destructive of those ideals, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish them. We've got some altering and abolishing to do. Alter and abolish. Because the American dream is under attack, the pursuit of happiness is under attack, so we do have to do some altering and abolishing. The American dream is being attacked by runaway debt. It is being attacked by a stagnant economy that is growing way below its potential. It is being attacked by an administration that chooses to force legislation down our throats against the will of the American people. We will alter and abolish those kinds of actions. You're well familiar with the problems. You read about them, you hear about them every day. And like you just get frustrated when you don't hear solutions. You and I know that we have become a nation of crises. We have a moral crisis. We have an economic crisis. We have an entitlement spending crisis. We have an energy crisis. We have an immigration crisis. We have a national security crisis. And most of all, we have a deficiency of leadership crisis in the White House. You see, leaders, real leaders, fix stuff, not make stuff worse. Real leaders solve problems, not create more problems. Real leaders will respect the will of the American people instead of ignoring the will of the American people. And so it is time for us to get some common sense solutions back into the White House. One of our biggest challenges is the economy. We need some direct stimuli, not more indirect, ineffective, or failed stimuli, starting with lower the top corporate tax rate and individual tax rates in this country. We're the only nation in the world that has not lowered it. It does not make any sense. We've got the second highest tax rate in the world, only behind Japan. And over the last 15 years, we're the only country that has not lowered those top corporate tax rates. Because every time the conservatives talk about lowering tax rates for corporations or lowering tax rates for individuals, the liberals crawl out of the corner and start yelling, but you're going to reward rich people and hurt old people, children, and puppy dogs. It's time to tell the American people the truth. Lower taxes is good for our economy. And we don't have any intention of hurting old people, children, and puppy dogs. Scare tactics is all they have to work with. All you have to do is look back in history. Lower tax rates worked in the 20s to make this economy strong. Lower tax rates worked in the 60s when John F. Kennedy was able to get them passed in order to jumpstart this economy. They worked in the 80s. They can work again in 2013 if you elect the right person president in 2012. Lower tax rates. I'm not afraid to say it because I believe that if the American people understand it, they will support it. Secondly, take capital gains tax rates to zero in order to stimulate some cash for small businesses. Zero. And whenever I share that idea with a liberal, they look at me like they don't understand the meaning of zero. And I ask, is it the Z-E-R or O? Don't you understand? That's the only way we're going to generate some more cash for small businesses, entrepreneurs in this country. Number three, take tax on repatriated profits to zero, suspend it, allow foreign profits to come back home. Because right now they get double taxed. Number four, let's give the American worker and the American employer a real payroll tax holiday, 6.2% for every worker for a year, 6.2% relaxation for every employer for a year. That would be a real direct stimulus, not this piddling 2% that they passed last year that nobody could even feel. Let's give every worker in America a raise for a year so they can pay off some bills. And then fifthly, you take those 4 direct stimulus measures and you wrap a bow around it called make them permanent so we can get rid of the uncertainty in this economy. Make them permanent in order to jumpstart this economy. One of the frustrating things, as many of you all know, is that our economy has the potential to grow a lot more than it is growing. And as long as we do not stimulate this economy the right way, we not only continue to face this economic crisis, but it also becomes a national security crisis. Because you see, if we do not grow faster than this anemic 2.5% that we've been growing, versus the 10% growth that China is growing compounded per year, economists have already calculated that within 15 to 20 years, on an absolute basis, their GDP growth will be as big as ours. The International Monetary Fund did another analysis where they took out the difference in exchange rates, calculated purchase power parity, and based upon leveling the playing field by taking out the exchange rates, it says that China will be big as us in 5 years. Let me tell you something. Being number 2 economically or militarily is not in our DNA. Not in our DNA. And that's why stimulating this economy has an absolutely higher priority than many people realize. But we can do it with those. That's phase 1. That's just phase 1 of my economic plan. And the reason that I identified those is such that we could get that passed quickly, because we can't continue to just muddle along at this low economic growth rate. That's phase 1. And then phase 2, once you send me to the White House, after we educate the public, replace the entire code with the fair tax. Supercharge the economy. Phase 1, phase 2. Phase 1, phase 2. Let me tell you what'll happen. When we do that, we won't have to look back to see which economy in the world is gaining on us, because once we do those 2 phases, no country in the world will be able to catch us, and we won't have to look back. I don't have time to go through my ideas on every one of these solutions, but there are a couple of them that I feel compelled to share with you because I consider them to be top critical. You've heard my ideas about the economy and what we have to do to stimulate it. Another one that we need to get serious about is a real energy independence plan, using the resources we have right here in the United States of America. Drill here, drill now, right now in America. You know, I have a common sense idea. Let me share a common sense idea with you. You know, those of you that know me know that I come at it from a common sense perspective. Here's a common sense idea. The president goes to Brazil and loans them $4 billion and tells them that we are going to be their best customer for the oil that they are going to drill down near Brazil. Consider this idea. Why don't we become our own best customer and take advantage of our resources right here at home? We've got the resources. We need the leadership to make it happen. Immigration, very quickly. When you hear the terminology comprehensive immigration reform, that's code for they don't know what to do. A problem solver makes sure that he's working on the right problem, that he assigns the right priority, that he surrounds himself with the right people. I've kind of done that in my 40-year business career. And then number 4, put together the plans that you execute, plans that the American people can understand. Because one of my guiding principles is when the people understand it, they will not only support it, but they will demand it. Immigration, we've got 4 problems that we need to work on. Number 1, secure the border. Secure the border. Not go to the border and do a photo op and make claims that are not true about safety. One of my other guiding principles all through my career, if you have a problem and you want to solve that problem, go to the source closest to the problem in order to find solution. Why don't they ask the sheriffs on the border of Arizona what the solution is instead of suing Arizona? That's how you solve the problem. Go ask them. You see, I happen to believe I happen to believe that we should empower the states, not sue the states. Allow the states to solve many of their problems. We must secure the border, enforce the laws that are already there. We've got to do some we got to clean up some things to make sure that it's easy for people to hire people that are here legally. Number 3, enforce the path to citizenship that's already there. We don't need a new path to citizenship. Ask the millions of people who came here legally. Let's make it work the legal way. And then number 4, the fourth problem. Our federal government has demonstrated consistently that it cannot solve the national immigration problems that we have. In fact, I can't think of one program out of Washington, D.C. where the federal government has been successful at micromanaging something. So in order to deal with the fourth problem of the illegals that are here in the various states, empower the states to fix the states' problem, not the federal government, because they won't do it and they can't do it. Empower the states. So you've heard my common sense ideas about the economy. You've heard my common sense ideas about real energy independence. You've heard my common sense ideas about what we ought to do about immigration. And for those of you who may not be familiar with them, you can find them at HermanCain.com. Yes, I'm plugging HermanCain.com. C-A-I-N, like in the Bible, but I didn't kill anybody. But there's one more I want to touch on. You know, some members of Congress. Now, fortunately, we have a lot of good conservatives in Congress from Georgia who are trying to get serious and follow Representative Ryan's lead on cutting the budget. But we're never going to get serious about stemming the growth in spending if we don't get serious about restructuring these programs and not just trimming around the edges. Let's start with the biggest one that they don't like to talk about. Let's start with the biggest elephant in the room, Social Security. We can fix Social Security with an optional personal retirement option like they did in Chile 30 years ago. We can fix that problem. And as you can see, most of our problems we can fix. It's not rocket science. It's a matter of having real leadership and having the will of the American people behind you. So when the Founding Fathers said, when any form of government becomes destructive of those ideals, those crises that I described are destructive of those ideals. And yes, just like we altered control of the House of Representatives last November, we are going to alter control of the United States Senate and the White House in 2012. Now, for those of you who haven't decided who you're going to support for president in 2011 and 12, next week, Saturday, in Centennial Olympic Park in Atlanta, I will be making a major announcement, and you are invited at high noon. High noon. Now, I had a reporter ask me, well, Mr. Cain, what are you going to announce on the 21st at high noon? I said, young man, let me see if you can connect the dots. I'm going to be there with 10,000 of my closest friends starting at high noon. Do you think I am going to announce that I'm not running? Go figure. But you invited to be there. And so we have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. And the other question that I often get is, well, Mr. Cain, why are you thinking about doing this? I happen to believe that we are all blessed with certain time on this planet, given certain talents and blessed with certain treasures. And we all have a responsibility to use our time, our talent, and our treasures to make a difference, whatever it is. Not everybody can run for office, but everybody can do something for this great nation. Everybody can do something. And in 1999, I wasn't sure what it was that I was supposed to do. That was 12 years ago. 12 years ago, my first grandchild was born. I wasn't expected to make it to the hospital in time, to be there for the blessed event. I was at a meeting, and it took me 3 days to get home. I figured that by the time I got back, the baby would be born. My wife had already flown to Atlanta, where my daughter was living with her husband. She was there in the delivery room. I kept calling home, talking to my son. 2 days later, after the process started, Vincent, do we have a baby yet? Vincent would say, no, Dad, we don't have a baby yet. 3 days later, I was getting ready to board the plane to get back to Atlanta after some meetings that I had on the way back. I called him up, Vincent, it's been 3 days. Do we have a baby yet? He said, no, Dad. Is Melanie okay? Yes. Is the baby okay? Yes. It's been 3 days. Why don't we have a baby yet? He said, Dad, it's a slow baby. I was able to get back to Atlanta, arrived at 8:30 p.m., January 22nd, 1999. Went to Piedmont Hospital. Arrived there about 9:30. Went up to the waiting area. My son was there. Vincent, do we have a baby yet? No, Dad, we don't have a baby yet. At 9:56, my wife came out of the delivery room, looked at me, looked at my son, and put her hands on her hips, moving her head. Y'all know how the ladies can do when they just a little bit disgusted about something. Looked at me, didn't even say, hello, honey, how was your trip? Her first words were, you have a granddaughter. I said, good. What's up, darling, with the attitude? She said, I've been with this child for 3 days and you show up and the baby is born. She was waiting on Granddad before she came into the world. Then my wife said, I know she was waiting on Granddad, and I got to hear that story for the rest of my life. And she will. I went into that room. I asked my daughter, was she doing okay? She said, yes. Is the baby okay? Yes. Then my daughter said, would you like to hold her? Yes. I took this little 15-minute-old baby in my arms, looked in that little face. The first thought that went through my mind, the first thought, so help me God, was what do I do to make this a better world and a better nation? That was 12 years ago, and I didn't know the answer. The point of that story, which is a true story, it's not about us. It's about the grandchildren. It's not about us. It's about all those little faces that deserve a fair chance at the American dream like we had. It's not about us. It is about the next generations, the children and the grandchildren. It's not about us. And so 12 years later, on this journey, I believe I know the answer to the question, what do I do to make this a better world? And what do I do to make this a better nation? If you join me at Centennial Olympic Park next Saturday at high noon, you'll find out. And you know, it's not about us, it's about the little faces and the children and the grandchildren. And it's also about freedom. It's about freedom. And no one summed it up better. No one expressed it better than one of the greatest presidents we ever had, Ronald Reagan, when he said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We can't pass it on in the bloodstream to our children. It must be fought for and protected, or one day we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our grandchildren what the United States of America used to be like when men were free." I'm not going to have that conversation with my grandkids, and I don't think you want to have that conversation with your grandkids. The Founding Fathers got it right. The Founding Fathers got it right. We must be the defending fathers. And after months and months of traveling this country and talking to many groups, large and small, I have come to the conclusion that the American people believe that we can take back our government. I'm not going to be elected president of the United States by the political elites. I'm going to be elected president of the United States by we the people, because we the people are still in charge of this country. We must be the defending fathers. And some people aren't going to want to get on the Herman Cain train. That's okay. Some people aren't going to want to take back this government and get it off of this socialist track. That's okay. But as my grandfather used to say, on Saturdays when he would load up the wagon with all of the grandkids running around in the yard to take a wagon load of potatoes to town, we would be running around and we were excited because it was the day that Grandpa was going to take us into town. And after he hitched the two mules to the wagon, loaded up all of the potatoes, he would make an announcement to the kids who wanted to go. Them that's going, get on the wagon. Them that ain't, get out of the way. To the rest of America, them that's going, get on the wagon. Them that ain't, get out of the way. This is our country. God is blessing America.